Table Talk is a weekly prayer breakfast that meets 6:30 every Friday morning at the Egg Platter on US 19 in Pinellas Park, and is part of the St. Pete Dream Center's ministry. So now let's join in on this week's discussion.
Well, Sam asked me to lead it this morning, so I figured I'd pick a topic, maybe talk a little bit about it, and then y'all can share in, whatever you have to add to it, bring to it. And I want to start off with an illustration. Okay? And the illustration is, there was a heavyweight boxer named James Quick Tillis. Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Heard today. Cool name, though.
No. He was a cowboy from Oklahoma.
I like him already.
Okay. And he fought out of Chicago in the early 1980s. So Sam, you might... he still remembers his first day in the Windy City. After his arrival from Tulsa, he said, "I got off the bus with 2 cardboard suitcases under my arms in downtown Chicago. And I stopped in front of the Sears Tower." Do you all know what the Sears Tower is? Very tall building, very... I put my suitcases down and I looked up at the tower and said to myself, "I'm going to conquer Chicago."
Wow. Amen.
When I looked down, the suitcases were gone. Needless to say,
Chicago.
his enthusiasm quickly turned into discouragement. Okay?
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit today, and that's discouragement. When the Lord spoke one word to me this week, and it was discouragement. And it's been a really rough week on me.
Bless your heart.
And trying to preach or speak out of a topic that you're going through is rather rough. Because you got to face a lot of things. You got to face your shortcomings, and maybe you're not quite the stellar star that you think you are, like this young man was. So we'll look at the definition of discouragement. I found this kind of interesting because I took a couple of definitions of it, merged them together. It could be the loss of confidence or enthusiasm. Who hasn't been there? A dissatisfaction with the past, a distaste for the present, and a distrust for the future. How many people know that you can struggle personally in them areas, not be satisfied where you are at this moment when you're walking with the Lord? We all go through this. It's what we do when we're in this that's important. Okay, or perhaps we've been in ministry and we've watched one failure after another failure after another failure. It can be discouraging. So as I was praying and asking the Lord about the topic to talk about, I was going through my own bout with discouragement, and it's hard to work through that as you're going through it. Okay, I want to take a story. It's not a story. It's a psalm. And it's chapter 61, verses 1 through 8. And I'd like someone to read it, other than me.
Everybody open up your Bibles.
So what book?
Okay, let me go
Psalm
get mine.
61.
Huh? What is
Psalm
it?
61.
Psalm 61, okay.
1 through 8. And I'd like to get someone to volunteer to read that.
I got one.
I'm not waking up to
It's one of the longer chapters, you know. In the scripture.
68 what?
61, 1 through 8.
61 or 68? I thought it was
61, 1 through 8.
I thought you said 68.
Hear my cry, O God. Attend unto my prayer. Boy, we could stop right there, huh? From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the cover of thy wings. Selah. Stop. Think about that. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Thou wilt prolong the king's life and his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. Oh, prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. Amen.
You know, some believe that this psalm was written probably during the time when David was fleeing from his son Absalom. You know, he was greatly discouraged, he was greatly depressed, down, and such. You know, when things in life don't go right with you, you know, when there's discouragement, it can be a very rough thing when it feels like you're all alone and such. I want you to look at verse 2 closely there. He only is my rock. Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one. For you have been a shelter for me. Start again. From the ends of the earth I will cry to you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. David felt God was 1,000,000 miles away from him. As a result of this, his heart was overwhelmed. You know, look up for the Hebrew word for overwhelmed, and it literally means to shroud. The term has the idea of being clothed in darkness. David was facing a time of loneliness and darkness in his life. Do you ever feel that way? Have you ever been in a time like that? What do most people do during that time?
Go back to their old ways.
A lot of people blame God and curse God.
Great violence. Get angry at people quicker.
Less patient.
Look under the fruits of the flesh and you'll see it listed there somewhere.
Oh, I thought that was the main tree. The main tree of the fruits.
Well,
Really, when you think
Right.
about it.
There you go.
in my own life, what I've had a habit of doing is quit.
Yeah.
Just give up. Which can be good because you come to the end of yourself. But if you stay in it, it could be very bad. Because it's never a good idea to just quit. Right? Which brings me to another illustration. You might have heard this one before. There was a little little boy was overheard talking to himself, wearing his baseball hat, carrying his bat and ball as he went into his backyard. He was heard saying, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And he tosses the ball into the air. He swings at it, and he misses. "Strike one," he yelled. He picks up the ball and says again, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And he tosses the ball in the air, swings again, and he misses. "Strike two," he yells. And he picks up the ball, and he examines the ball carefully in the bat. You know, he spits on his hands, you know. He rubs them together. Says once again, "I am the greatest hitter in the world." And again, he tosses the ball into the air. He swings with the bat, and he misses. Strike three. "Wow," he says, "I'm the greatest pitcher in the world."
Amen.
Met his match.
Amen. Yeah.
Now,
Sounds like Babe Ruth.
that was a positive place to be in.
Amen.
Unfortunately, his sight was placed on himself. You know, that was the one downfall really in that. He put his confidence in himself and continued to put his confidence in himself. But the one thing he didn't do was quit.
Amen.
You know?
Amen.
David, in this psalm, ran to the rock that was higher than himself. You know? And you see, that's what we fail to do a lot of times. We get in these circumstances like this, and you know, we try everything else. We look to our own strength to go through things. Yep. But we neglect to run to the rock. And you know, when we deal with discouragement, the number one thing that we have to do is respect the position of the Lord. You know, we have to know that there's something out there greater than us. Not only did he run to the rock, but he ran to the protection of God. You know, he said that his shelter was a strong tower from the enemy. You know. So what he did was, as he was being attacked and going through these things by the enemy, because discouragement, depression, and all this comes from the enemy. You know, the one thing that David did was he ran to the Lord, to his protection. You know, he ran to abiding under the wings of the Almighty. And many times when we go through these things, we neglect to do that. And it's hard to do that. So if we respect his position, and we can run to the protection of the rock, you know, if you're struggling with discernment in the present, remember the past. What do you think I mean by that?
Say that again.
If you are struggling with discouragement in the present, okay, remember the past.
God's victories that He's given you, the times He pulled you through when you didn't think you were going to make it, all the blessings He bestowed upon you, the goodness of God. I mean, it's innumerable, you know, to start thinking of those things. And when you do, when you start when you focus on the problem, it grows, you know what I mean? The minute you focus on the answer, that problem shrinks, you know?
When you say focus on the past, like in the Old Testament, when God did something for one of his righteous people, they would make an altar there to remember it, and then go on.
Good point.
But they would go back to the altars, and that's kind of like the same thing. If you go back to the past, go to the altars where God has already helped you before, and say, okay, I see where he's helped me here, so I know he can help me again. And get your eyes off, like you said, get off the problem, let it shrink, and let the Lord show you how big he is. Don't tell the world how big your mountain is, tell the world how big your God is, and tell that to the mountain.
This is the way our vision works. You can stand in front of a mountain, and if you stare at your thumbnail long enough, that mountain will disappear. And pretend that mountain's your problem. But this is your answer. So we got to focus on the answer, and the problems will always disappear.
Proverbs talks about do not move the ancient boundaries. And what is that ancient boundary? Well, 39 and a half years ago, I gave my life to Jesus. Changed my life. That's a long time ago. And guess what? He's still changing my life.
Yeah. Day by day.
You know, we had someone that spoke about at the church about a month ago about those boundaries that he's talking about. That God set the boundaries, and then we try and stretch them and hope grace and mercy will help us out. And then we have to run back to the boundaries.
You did. I'm going to the right spot.
But you know, you said, I want to share this while I'm remembering what you were saying.
Mine's 57.
My grandmother used to use those parables.
Do you have any
know,
cocktail sauce?
And
Yeah.
kind of relating to the discouragement where you said we get to a point and we quit. She used to talk about the rope and you'd get down to the last knot. And she'd say, when you get to that point, you got to wait for God to tell you, let go and trust him. And you let go and you end up in his arms.
I don't know how many people knew Chaplain Ray, but that was one of his famous sayings. He would say to the prisoners who he ministered to, he said, God's at the end of your rope. So when you get to the end, tie a knot and hang on.
Yeah.
Right.
Help's on the way.
Amen.
You know, I was talking to, I don't know who, somebody here, and they were talking about driving from here to California. And he was telling me which route you should take, because there's one that takes you through Texas. He says, if you take that route that you go to Texas, he says that when you're on that route, you see that mountain over there. Oh man, that's a gorgeous mountain, man. I can't, I'm gonna get over there, you know. And you ride for hours and hours and hours, and where's that mountain? Is it, you know, is it getting any closer? You could see it, but it takes you a long time to get there. You know, I'm not
Optical illusion, how close it is.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
being
not-
out in the ocean or the Gulf.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know.
And sometimes, you know, we you look at a vision or a dream or a happen or something, and there it is. It's right over there. But it seems like you're never getting there. You're in that treadmill that keeps taking you backwards, you know, instead of going forward. And so, you know, you get those sense of discouragement, and I think it happens to us in ministry or whatever, or life period,
Amen.
where you know, you have a vision,
Thank
or
you.
you get up in the morning, or God spoke to you, or you felt God spoke to you, God called you to do something, and well, you know, you're on that quest, you're on that road to do what God called you to do. But my goodness, that mountain ain't getting any closer, man. You know what I'm saying? And
It's
you
a
get
struggle.
to that point of discouragement, you know? But yet, if you keep on driving, you're going to get there, you know? You just say,
Perseverance.
That's a good example. That's US Highway 10 when you're heading toward Arizona. And I mean, those mountains are way, I mean, you can drive like 6 or 7 hours and there's still a
I've
distance
had it
yet.
happen right in the city. Me and my wife went to Vegas. She'd never been there. Went there for a week, and we're staying in this hotel right on the strip. And we wanted to go to this casino down there because there was a show we were going to. We were there for a whole week. We never even dropped a quarter in the slot machine because we're not
Amen.
gamblers. But we had a great time, ate great food, and seen some awesome shows. And it was right down the street. You could see it from our room. I says, there's no sense getting a taxi or anything. We'll just walk down there. Well, it's 98 degrees when we're there
Oh,
in
my.
July.
Oh my.
And we kept walking,
July.
and it looked like it was just a couple casinos down, and we kept walking and walking. And I told her, I'm getting like overheating hot. And I said, let's go in this casino, cool off, man. I can't walk. And we finally made it to that thing. It was blocks and blocks away, but it was an optical illusion that was like just right next door, just a little ways. From then on, we got a pass.
You should use that app right there.
We got one of those passes for one of those buses you ride on, but it's the way life is.
That was the deception of that false light.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Uber to the rescue, brother.
Yeah.
I think also about a lot of times we look into the past to the things that were one time,
Yeah.
and when we focus our eyes too much on the past like that, we become very discouraged, and that's what happened to the children of Israel during the time when Solomon had that great temple built. And it was a beautiful thing, and all Israel just marveled at it and such. When the Medes and Persians came in, they destroyed the temple. Oh, yeah. And they took all the inhabitants and sent them to different areas of the country. Now there was a reason for doing that, so that they couldn't rise up and rebel, But the one man, his heart broke over that, the way things were. A lot of times I'll look back on what I've seen in Christianity and the movements and stuff in the Lord, and look at it. It seems like we're in the opposite direction a lot of times,
But yet, I think we're on the brink of a great revival.
And if you dwell too much on the past, you don't see what's coming up.
No, when you look at the situation around you, and it does look bleak, but yet, man, the word says when you see these things occur, rejoice because the end is near.
And encourage one another.
Encourage one another.
You see the day approaching.
Yeah, and it's exciting because as we get older, when you're younger, you have visions, dreams, and aspirations of building whatever. And so, some of us may have attained those things, and maybe some of us come out short. But the point is that we were going forward with it. But yet, to me, as we get older, I get older, that the most important thing to me is is being obedient and rejoice that when you see these things happen.
Amen.
And at that point in time, to me, I think was just only one thing left. Well, I got less. Well, how's that going? I got more behind me than I have in front of me of life. And if I'm gonna die, I want to die.
Not much left on the road.
There you go. And if I'm gonna die, man, I want to die with doing God's work, man. And we're trying to strive for greatness, financial things, or whatever. All that stuff is good. But the greatest joy is man, you could have. And this is nothing on anything here, but I look at a car lot. We're in the car. I've been in the car business and all that. We could see all these fine cars. Oh man, you can sit there and you can look at all these great and wonderful things, right? But the greatest joy that a person can have is have all those parking full of those souls of people that you minister to throughout the years. And we sit around the table and do a kumbaya, and we think about some of the crazy people that we ministered to and how when they were out there But praise the Lord, because we were able to minister to
Yep.
them. And some of the weird ones that we've had through here. Oh, yeah. You know?
I resemble
Yeah,
everyone.
yes, you do. Very much.
And some of them that
Amen.
Well, the table
And
got
some of-
quiet, didn't it?
some of them that we may have written off and said, we couldn't. But if we planted those seeds and then somebody else watered, God's going to give you the credit for that too. Look, you started it there, and look what finished.
Yeah.
You may not know it till you're there, and He shows you this.
Remember our resident Catholic?
Yeah. Right.
Woo! You weren't here.
Jim.
Yeah, you weren't here when our
Calvin.
resident he passed away.
Yeah.
But he finally got saved eventually. He accepted Christ. But he was way out there.
Yeah.
And
Rough around the edges.
very rough around the edges.
It's like we always teach.
But he was ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
Right.
Catholic Methodist, God's got a core in every one of them working,
Yeah.
and He can use it.
Yeah,
And all we
die
have
hard.
to do is feed that core when we're there, and let that core grow.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in Catholic. There was a charismatic Catholic church in Boston that got
Well,
the whole thing,
They threw the church out, right?
the whole church, but they didn't. But the church owned the building, not the diocese, so
Yeah.
they kept the building.
Most people look at C.S. Lewis as being one of the greatest theologians.
Right.
It was a Catholic that led him to Christ.
Amen.
Tolkien was a
Yeah,
devout Catholic.
yeah,
Amen.
yeah.
and I wasn't saying anything about
Yeah.
Catholic. I was just saying that he was ours. He was ours. He
Right.
was ours.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the mission field in Belize with a Pentecostal church, and we were going all over Belize preaching and baptizing people in the Holy Spirit and stuff. And we ran into these ladies one day, and they were doing the same thing, and I got to talking to them, and they were Spirit-filled Catholic.
Yeah.
And they were on fire for the Lord, man. They teamed up with us, and I mean, we shook that place up.
Amen.
It wasn't the same when we left, you know.
Remember Simeon and Anna, they were in the temple when the Lord came to be dedicated. And of course, Simeon lifts up the child and says, "Now I have seen the redemption of Israel." And in this last verse of your psalm that you read, it says, "So I will sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows." What have you promised God to do? Go back and remember those promises, because those are the things that will carry you through discouragement. It will carry you through. Discouragement is so horrible because it can take you to the pit. But God is in the pit with you.
Amen.
I got to point out one thing. You see, for Andre's Bible, it's worn and tattered. A man that owns a Bible falling apart isn't.
Amen. Oh, I like that.
It belongs to a person that isn't.
I like that. That's good.
You know, a couple months ago I started, my wife and I, to read the scriptures together at night.
Okay, there you
It's the
go.
last thing. And so I wanted to go to the book of Acts, and she wanted to go to the book of Luke. Well, you know what? I'm the man of the house, and I thought,
Uh-oh.
I'm supposed to get what I want. Well, anyway, what happened was I bit my tongue, knowing that she's probably smarter than me. And so we started in the book of Luke. Just what she would like. And guess what? She found encouragement in it. I found encouragement in the Word of God. Not necessarily in my wife, but in the vow that I would go through marriage for better or for worse. And you know what? It hurt my pride. Aw. Everybody say, aw. Isn't it wonderful when your pride
Yeah.
is dented?
Yeah,
Amen.
kill that stinking thing.
Amen.
Put it on the altar.
We all know that we go through seasons of life. That's predicted at our age. I guarantee every one of them have done it. And what I'm going to say right now is nothing but super obvious. But recently I got bugged in something of the past and started working on it. Now we know we're not to dwell it, we're not to stay there.
Amen.
But I'm going to tell you something. I mean, That's true, and when that happens, you really think hard. So after a little bit of thinking, a little bit of prayer, I wound up saying, and I mean this, thank you, God, that I went through that.
Yeah, amen.
I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, amen.
But two things happened.
Amen.
First, it made me see something bad in me because of what I did. But secondly, I know how to handle it now in my life. And if you come to me with something about that, I can from experience share. And if you'll listen, help you through a situation. Because I've been there.
Yeah.
Every one of us can say that about something.
Yeah.
But are we, the point of today's lesson, are we through discouragement, despair, and Satan, are we dwelling on it?
You need syrup?
Are we using that to learn to maybe first help
Yeah,
ourselves?
strengthen
And
us.
really
Corned
help
beef
Become
ourselves?
stronger.
beef
Yeah.
half?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to give him syrup.
Now, Glenn, how old are you?
Saturday I'll be 78.
Old
78.
Amen. How about
So,
that? Happy birthday.
God is still speaking to a 78-year-old man.
Yeah. Amen. Wisdom.
Things of wisdom.
If
So-
he'll listen.
Good wisdom.
You
You
mean,
gotta put that in there.
you,
In all honesty.
you mean
For us
that
guys,
there's
say that
been
one more
times
time.
If he'll
when you
listen.
haven't listened? There's
Are
been
you
times
from
when you haven't
Alabama?
listened?
Oh, yeah.
Are you from Alabama?
Oh, yeah. But thank God I'm not from Chicago.
He still got his bag.
I ain't got
You know, God is so good. He really is. You know, we say that so much, and a lot of times I guess we say it, maybe it's just yeah. But he really is. I mean that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. This message is a great message for me this week. See you, Mr. Charlie. And I know I get long-winded, so I apologize. I'm gonna make this super short. But I feel like God's speaking this, and what great wisdom around the table, man. I wasn't gonna come this morning, and so I'm glad I did. I'm always glad when I make the effort to get here, because I was tired. You know, I traveled this week. Anyway, it's a great message for me. So thank you, Fritz. Sorry you're going through discouragement this week, because it's a drag. You know, especially as a man. I mean, man, we're taught to conquer mountains, blah 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 blah, all that pride, the ego. You know, and when you're not doing that, it erodes right the very core of what we think we're supposed to be. You know, strong, powerful, all that good stuff. Never give up, never get in, blah 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 bull. You know what I mean? It took me more than half my life as a Christian to figure out a man's man, the definition of a man's man. A real man's man. And it took me half my life to figure this out. And I was one of these kids, grew up, wanted to be fastest, wanted to be strongest, John Wayne, Green Berets, the whole bit. And I lived it, you know what I mean? Because that's what I grew up, that environment. Yeah, we all did, you know what I mean? And then you find out at some point it's empty, because you ain't gonna do what you know what I mean? When I realized that a real man's man, not a fictitious thing in the Hollywood or anything like that, a real man's man is a man that'll go to the cross for you. You know what I mean? A man that loves like nobody loves. You know what I mean? That's a man's man. So when it's one day it just hit me in the face, and I thought to myself, I'm sorry, Father, that I have been looking up to all these fictitious images of the way I'm supposed to be, when I get it now. I get it. So help me try to be more like him. You know what I mean? Because, boy, I got a big pride and ego, blah, blah, blah. So this week, Sunday night, I'm doing worship. As y'all know, my sweetie, she is a youth director, and we got a big youth group here in town, blah, blah, blah. I just help out. I sweep the floor. Anyway, we're doing worship. And the kids, now this is middle school, high school, college. Now we took 60, a month ago up the Appalachian Mountains. We hike and, Christian hike and all that kind of stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So it's a big group, middle school, high school, college age, 5th grade, 6th grade, all the way up. But they started doing some things during worship that were just about as disrespectful as you could get. And the adults there didn't do anything about it. And it was just horrible. It was horrible. We had to stop worship. You know what I mean? We had been there for 2.5 hours, had fun, have a meal like we always do. It was horrible. And it really didn't hurt me, you know, because I mean, you know, I just get up and sing and play, and you know, I know I'm just to see grade there. I just doing what God tells me to do. But it really, you know, it really took me down because I've known these kids a long time and I love them. I know they love me, but it really discouraged me how disrespectful they were being to God. You know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in worship, about 2.5 hours, we just asked them to be a little quiet. So it really, for some reason, man, it really got to me deeply, you know, and I started thinking, you know, this is a waste of time because we're not there to play and we're not there, you know what I mean, if we as adults and we as leaders, if we're not getting to them and helping them realize that, you know, there's times you have fun, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but they're kids, you know, they're kids. But anyway, but it got me. The enemy got me, you know, and so then I go out of town for 2 or 3 days. I've been working on this house, and it's a big job, a lot of job, and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm 3 days solid, from sun up to about 10 o'clock at night, every physical thing you can imagine about rehabbing a house to put it on the market so our family can sell it. So I'm cutting trees, everything. So I'm up there by myself, which was good because Sunday night, I left, and you know I wouldn't do that, but you know, right at the end of the program, normally I stay around, we fellowship, have fun, blah blah blah. I just left. And of course Kaylee, my sweetie, she was like, "Holy cow!" And this really got him. And now we talked about it afterwards. I said, "Look, you know, I love y'all and everything. This is not about me at all. But I mean, I can't be around anymore a place where we're supposed to be honoring God for just a few minutes, and we are so disrespectful, you know." And so we really, you all know I love you and everything, but we really need to think about this because, you know, gosh dang it, because we had some new visitors there, and so this was their first impression. We had some brand new 5th and 6th graders there who were moving up into youth with the big kids. This was their first impression. So it was like, really? I mean, I'm like, but none of the adults did anything about it. It was like, yeah, no, it's like, I'm like, wait a second, you know, if we're not, so, like I said, so I'm up there, you know, working on this house. It's hot, it's miserable, mosquitoes, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the last job I got to do is I got to cut down 3 trees. You know, now, nobody's ever cut down trees or anything like that, you know, it's a lot of work. You know. Yeah, I'm talking about 50, 60-foot oak trees. You know what I mean? And so I'm going out, and I've been doing that kind of stuff all my life. I'm fortunate, raised by depression kids. We learn to do everything, you know. I don't want to have to do it all the time, but if I got to do it, you do it. So I can pay somebody $1,000 to do it, or I can do it myself. So I'm trying to be a good steward. And man, these trees are whipping me. Chainsaw finally goes, you know, I got one, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's whipping. But every time, and this is what I'm thankful for. And that's why I'm so thankful for this message this morning, discouragement, and what we do about it, you know. Can't stay in that place, you know, because if we do, we're whipped already. And really, if you think about it, without God, without Jesus and what they teach us and what we learn, we're whipped already. We just don't know it. We might be egotistical and prideful and think we can, you know, we're the best batter and the best pitcher. But things like that, we're whipped already. You can swing all you want. You know what I mean? But boy, when we turn it loose. So I got an hour left to go of work. I'm sick of that place. I've been doing this for 3 months. Every time when I start thinking about going up there, 3 or 4 days ahead of time, I'm like, gosh damn, please, Lord, you know, nobody's helping me, blah, 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 you know. So the chainsaw finally dies halfway through a tree, you know, so I can't get the tree down, but it's half cut, so I can't leave it. I can't get it out because, you know, the weight of it is laid against the blade, so it's bound up. It's hanging over the water, okay, leaning over the dock. If it falls, it'll crush the dock that I spent the last month and a half rebuilding. the chainsaw will go in the water, so then I got to take it to the chainsaw place and get it, I mean, it's like, really? And I am tired, and I am hot, and I am sweaty. But, getting by yourself and getting in the Word is the greatest thing in the world, because you start thinking, and you start listening, we learn these tools. And so I'll just say this by the end of it. And I quit 2 or 3 times. I quit. I was wore out, and I want to go home. I want to,
I think the Lord gave you a break.
Well, He did, because I get away from it, and I start messing with something else, and I'd be praying about it. Lord, help me get this done. Show me how to do it. Show me, okay. And every time I do that, you give me an idea. Hey, you got a wedge in there that you saw. I hadn't used it 20 years, and you got a hammer. Go get that wedge and that hammer. You don't need a chainsaw for this. You got it started. Go get the wedge and the hammer. So, take the break 5 or 10 minutes, get a little water, something to drink, and then I'm like, well, thanks God, that's not a bad idea. I go get that wedge, and the wedge is so old, it's covered with rust and all that kind of. Man, I put the wedge in there, start whacking away. Before they had chainsaws, that's all they did.
Yeah.
And the hope is coming back, and that tree is starting to lean just a hair. You know what I mean? But it's not going yet. And I whack on that thing, so I'm dying, man. I can't swing that anymore. I'm like, I'll try to get the chainsaw out. Y'all say, please, Lord, help me. Walk away, start praying about it a little bit. Father God, give me the strength, give me the idea, give me the wisdom, all the different things, man. I'm going to the well. You know what I mean? Walk away from it, fool with something else just a minute, And then he says, well, go get that aluminum extension ladder and lay it against the tree the way it's leaning and walk up on it. Right? All you need is a lever. Make you a lot stronger. So I go get the extension ladder, I lay it up on that tree. There's the wedge, I'm wore out. There's the chainsaw, it's stuck, it's wore out. You know what I mean? The chain even came off. You know what I'm saying? So I go get that ladder, I lay it against that tree. I'm 190 pounds. Start walking up on the ladder. Guess what? It starts moving just a hair. The wedge falls out. And I'm like, all right, it's not too bad, thanks. Who'd ever thought of that? Who'd ever thunk it? You know what I mean? That's right. And so, man, you know what I mean? I'm going to God. I'm in the pit, and all the time I'm thinking about youth and the kids, and I ain't going back. And my sweetie and I, we even talked about it. I said, honey, I'm having a hard time because I'm gonna have a hard time go back and do worship again. If this way, you know what I mean? And you guys know how I love that. I just love the music and the word because it's a sermon in itself, and so anyway, so man, the ladder's working a little more. You know what I mean? 20 minutes, 30 minutes prior to that, I was done. Chainsaw was done. I didn't have the wedge. I just backed up, took a breath. Now I wasn't doing it in my own power. I was at the end of it. But you develop those tools. The Spirit starts talking to you a little bit. Don't give up. Do this a minute. Help me, Father. Go get that wedge. Go get that ladder. Okay. So, all right. So it still hadn't come down. Now I'm on that ladder. It won't move anymore. And I'm like, holy cow! And and then he tells me, there's an old axe in there that you saw. And use it 20, 25 years. Who uses an axe when you got a chainsaw? Come on, especially in Florida. You know what I mean? Go get the axe. Anyway, long story short.
You hit the dog.
Well, it did, but the good news is an old tree, palm tree, that I've been working on before, I hadn't been able to get out for 2 years. I even tried to pull it with the truck. The chain is still in it. I can't get the chain out. But we're gonna get that palm tree out. You know what I mean? Not because of me, but the doctor. But long story short, I was 4 hours late from the time I wanted to leave. Okay, you know what I mean? But once I got to the point, I started seeing that, getting that wind back in my sails. Then I started thinking different about the youth group. Hey, they're kids. How many times did I disrespect God? You know, I mean, they still tell stories about it in the church. You know, my family's been there five generations. They still, sometimes they bring up stories where the pastor, who's past retired now, he's 85, and he talks about the fact when Jim and everybody else was kids, we had to go out of the sanctuary. Somebody from the choir, he turned around and he said, would somebody go out and get those boys, because we were being so loud and noisy you could hear it in the sanctuary. We were interrupting the thing, and we were in a whole different area of the church. So they sent somebody out of the choir in front of our parents and everybody. There was probably 1,000 people in there, and they marched us in front of everybody. You know what I mean? They still tell stories back. I mean, you know, but I started thinking about it.
Still see where your ears been.
You know, and he starts giving me that grace, you know, and that understanding, reminder what I'd done before, but you know, and all that kind of stuff. And so, anyway, it was just long story short, you know, I made it back. It's 4 hours late. I still got everything done. Got back. It's been a great week. It's been a good learning week. It's been a struggle and all that kind. The trees are down. All the trees are down. The dock's fine. I got the chainsaw out. I brought the chainsaw home. All I got to do is put. You know what I mean? It's just. And the kids called me. The kids called me last night on the phone, and they apologized. And they said, "Will you come down tonight? We normally don't meet on Friday night. It's at 6 o'clock because we got something special we'd like to do for you." And we, you know what I mean? And so, because I was discouraged, you know what I mean? And the enemy was taking liberties with it. And I was letting him, you know. But thank goodness for you guys and the message and this word and the tools he teaches us, and you know the learning finally as men that, you know, really ding dong, you know, you really want to be the strongest, because that's a big weight, you know. So anyway,
You know, you reminded me of, I just alluded a little bit to it, where the children of Israel had looked at their temple that was destroyed and whatever. That only happened like 60, 70 years afterwards, that they're there looking at this, thinking back on the past. There are people that were still alive that remembered that temple and its glory and stuff, and yet here they are conquered by another nation, and their enemies are all around them, and their discouragement is great. They're looking at what was.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
they're looking at what was, and they forget that that temple in its beauty was built by Solomon.
Right.
He taxed the people to do that, but his father David also contributed greatly to the construction of that.
Amen.
So even though they were in the position they were rebuilding the temple, you know, it may not have seemed like much, but they didn't have anything
Right.
to start with.
Right. It's a new beginning.
Yeah, and it wasn't until they got their eyes off of that and
Yeah.
placed it on God and Him and His provision.
Fulfill
Right.
that sign.
Their failures, their discouragement, their.
It
Amen.
wasn't until they put their eyes onto that that
Amen.
the presence of God came in. You know, and the presence of God means everything. It changes you in the circumstance.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. That wedge,
That way.
and that axe, and that ladder, and that, you know.
Let me share something with you guys that I came across, because I'm in this process right now since I closed the ministry, and I wanted to do checking some things around, and I went down and had to South St. Pete and had coffee with a friend of mine, and so he was sharing with me all the goings on and what's happening in the ministries and this and how things are not. But anyway, man, when I got out of there, I said, you know, Lord, I think if you, I told the guy, I said, you know what, if Lord gave me that, I probably might come back. But on my way back, I said, man, I don't even want to go there again. You know, I said, I don't want to go there again. because I've been there and realizing the darkness of the spirituality that's in that community is so overwhelming that I said, man, I could not go back there again. Especially unless you had an army with you, you know.
Yeah, amen.
But I tell you what, so I went there. I said, nah. I say, thank you, Lord. I know you got to have something new for me, you know, because of the darkness of that. But yet, at the same instance, the blessings and the ministries of the lives that were changed and transformed are there. But that very same darkness that overshadows that little area, that area over there, actually spreads out. As I was driving out toward the house, you could see where that mold, you know how mold travels, and that mold travels, and it's all over the place. And for me, that, you know, because of the ministry that I was in, I was helping to restore life, restoring hope and changing lives. That the desire of ministry in doing that is, you know, it's still there. But man, you know, you could sit there and be the weekly prophet because you could say, you know, where are all the people? Where are all the people?
Yeah.
You know, and where are the people? And so anyway, so I don't want to get caught up with that in my brain or my head,
Right.
because I got to deal with Sam, and I got to deal with what God called me to do. And I definitely did not die on the cross.
Yeah.
You know, I did not die on the cross.
Amen.
Can I got to go pretty quick. I want to give a quick testimony. Toward the end of last May, my wife had to have that pinpoint laser radiation surgery on the brain. They had a little tumor. We found out in June the tumor was gone, but it left necrotia, which like twice the size, the dead cells. And the doctor said she's probably going to feel some weakness in that. Well, it takes away her appetite too. So she's getting weaker. 2 weeks ago, she could barely walk without someone helping her. She couldn't even use a walker. So the doctor said, okay, let's do the steroids. And they put her on the steroids. A week later, she went with my sister-in-law, who was staying with us, over to my sister-in-law's house on the other side of the state. Now she was walking, but she would have to grab onto a chair or, you know, hold my arm or something like that. They went over there for 3 days, changed the scenery. They came back yesterday afternoon, and she walked out of the car, across the parking lot, up the driveway, and in the door, and didn't touch a thing.
Amen.
Totally.
Praise
And
the
then
Lord.
this morning we go see, and he said he's trying to get it approved to put her on Avastin rather than, you know, the chemicals. You know, when they do the once a month they do a maintenance infusion, but if they put her on the Avastin, they've been having such it's a pill, and they've been having such great effects with it that even lung cancer and brain cancer and that it's stopping the tumors. So he said he's trying to get her approved. We'll find out this morning. She won't have to go in there and spend 3 hours once a month. Amen. But I was so happy when I saw her walk through that door. I was jumping. I was almost jumping. Inside I was jumping, and you know. But yeah, it's amazing.